Alright, YouTube, we got a video here showing a breakdown and the integral parts of the rear carburetor. This is just for the rear only. Carburetor for a 2000 Suzuki Marauder, the VZ800 motor. So this whole thing started for me when I let the bike sit for a while, and I went to start it up, and I had fuel pouring out of the overflow here. So I tore the thing apart and found that my float needle, this guy right here, was sticking. So I started cleaning things, tried to clean what I could without really tearing this thing apart, and put it back together. It ran better, didn't overflow, wasn't spewing fuel out of the overflow, but it still wasn't right. So decided to tear the thing apart and do a rebuild. So I got a whole bunch of parts and pieces here, and I'm just going to kind of give you an overlay of the land so you know kind of what you're getting into before you tear this thing apart. So I guess we'll start with the bottom. So when you take out the screws here for the float bowl, you got 4 screws, 1 in each corner. That's these guys right there. Pull that bowl off. There is a gasket in there that I have since removed, since it's old, probably from 2000 when the thing was built. Rebuild kit, and I'll post a link to pick up this rebuild kit in the description. There's a new gasket, we'll put that in later, and that sits right here. So then you will pull out the main jet, which is right here, and it looks like this when you take it out. There's also a washer that sits down beneath that, so be careful when you're moving things around because you don't want to lose that like I almost did. And that sits right in the ridge here. And then the pilot jet, which sits down inside there. So mine was giving me some issues. I tried to pull it out with a screwdriver and broke a couple of chunks off, and ended up having to drill it out and use a number 1 extractor to be able to pull this thing out. So hopefully this is what's going to solve my issue, because I think this was clogged up and was the main reason for all of this. And we got a new one here that we're going to put in. Alright, so back to the carb. The float needle has a set screw here. Looks like this. Sits down inside those threads down in there. Holds this in. It's like the float needle sleeve. I don't even know what you call it, but once you take that set screw out, this thing should slide right out. And the rebuild kit does come with a new one. It's right there with the float needle. Here's my floats with the old needle. It's not too chewed up, but I got a new one, so I'll put it in. And then I cleaned all the passages, everything I could gain access to. So that's pretty much it for oh, this right here does not come out as far as I know, but that is for your choke. That's the pickup for the choke, and it sends fuel over to this right here. That's where your choke plunger, I guess you would call it, fits into, and that sends fuel into your inlets. So that's it for the bowl. And then I pulled the diaphragm out. Take these, where are they here? these 4 screws out on the corners. Take the cap out. There's a screw beneath, or a spring beneath it, pretty large, decent amount of pressure. So you're going to want to keep pressure on that thing as you take those screws out, and then slowly lift it out and pull that spring out. And then you can pull the diaphragm out along with the needle. And then once you have this whole assembly out, you kind of wipe it down, take those 2 screws out, take that plate out that's in there, and then you can replace the needle, which looks like this in the kit, and it's numbered. There's a part number etched in there, and there's a little ridge that a C-clip, which they do provide for you in the kit, down in there. You clip that on there. There's a spacer that sits on this side of it, and then there's a washer that sits on the other side. You slide that down along with the spring that sits below. There's a little channel at the base of this beneath that plate, and I probably should have recorded a video that shows you that, but you can kind of see it here. How it moves up and down. Springs in there, holds tension on it. And when you reinstall that plate down inside there, you want to make sure that the dimple is down. That kind of stops it from moving around. So that'll give you a new needle. The other part of that is taking this coast diaphragm out. It sits in here. Sits on like this. It's pretty difficult to reinstall something when you're watching yourself do it through the screen. Wish there was a better way to do this, but you take these 2 screws out. They come out of here and here, and then this plate comes out. There's a spring that sits in there that puts pressure on this, which is right here. So make sure you press down on this if you're going to take this off and clean these passages. Pull this guy back out without damaging it. So there is a passage down in there. It's kind of hard to see, but you can probably see it. That controls the movement of the diaphragm through this port here. And the kit does not come with a replacement for that, but it looks like it's a decent sized bore, so it shouldn't be anything that gets clogged up. The other port on the diaphragm here is just a drill port to create the passages for the rest of the carburetor, and it ends up getting plugged up down at the bottom there, which you can see. So that doesn't actually do anything for the operation of the carburetor. So let's see, the last portion of this would be the pilot screw, which is down in there. There's a plug that sits over this that you'll have to drill out and remove. So if you follow the service manual, like I did, it tells you to start with an 1/8 inch drill bit, the 6mm drill stop from the end of the drill bit, so you don't drill too far. So here is the actual pilot screw that comes out. So the reason why they tell you to set a drill stop is so that you don't catch the actual screw when you drill through that plug and damage it, so you can't remove it. but I ended up having to move up a size. I believe this is an 1/8 inch drill bit to be able to get enough material out to be able to pull the whole plug out to clear the passage so I can get the screw out. So the pilot screw comes out looking just like that. A spring sits on the shaft, and there's a little washer that sits at the base of it. So when it's all assembled, it comes out like that. Sometimes that washer will stick down in the bottom there. So when you go and you bang this thing around or you move it around, sometimes that washer doesn't come out immediately, and then that thing will come clinking out and hit your arm and disappear down these cracks. Don't lose it. You need that. Just want to give you a heads up. And I think that's pretty much it for things that need to be replaced. So the kit here, I'll give you a quick breakdown of this. Comes with a new pilot jet, which was the issue that I had. Mine seized in there and probably clogged up. The new main jet, pilot screw, and the spring that sits beneath it. It does not come with the washer. Put that back into place here. It does not come with that washer, so don't lose that. It comes with the pilot, the float needle sleeve filter. I'm not really sure what this is called, but that's what holds this down inside the carburetor. Comes with a new screw for that. Comes with the new screws for the bowl with the lock washers on there. New bowl gasket. New sleeve for the float needle. A new float needle. And then these are the screws that hold the cover on the diaphragm. This section here is all just for the rear carburetor. And these parts are for the front, which will be a separate video, and I'll get into that. But this will be your pilot jet. That's your main jet. Again, your pilot screw, the spring that sits on the pilot screw. These are gaskets, I believe. I haven't 100% confirmed that, but I believe these are for the plungers for the choke. I know there's a gasket that sits at the base of that threads into this port here. It sits down on that ridge. So when I go to put this back together, I'll confirm that. And then your bowl screws, your bowl gasket here for the front carburetor, your float needle sleeve, filter, and gasket there, your float needle, and then your the diaphragm cover screws here. So it's a complete rebuild kit, and like I said, that front carburetor will be a second video. If you got any questions or anything, post them down in the comments, and hopefully I didn't miss anything. Let me know. Thanks.